Beneath the surface of everyday conversations, hidden battles are taking place. Not the kind that involve shouting, threats, or obvious control, but quiet battles that happen inside the mind. A few carefully chosen words, a subtle shift in blame, a small comment that lingers in your thoughts long after the conversation ends. These moments often seem harmless on their own, yet over time they can change the way a person thinks, feels, and even sees reality. The most effective manipulators understand a truth that many people overlook. Controlling someone openly creates resistance. Controlling someone quietly often goes unnoticed. The unsettling part is that manipulation rarely arrives wearing a warning sign. It does not always come from enemies, rivals, or strangers. In many cases, it comes from people who appear trustworthy, supportive, and caring. They may seem helpful, they may seem concerned. They may even appear to have your best interests at heart. That is exactly why manipulation can be so difficult to recognize. The people who use it are often skilled at hiding their intentions behind kindness, charm, and emotional connection. Psychologists have spent decades studying how influence works and why some individuals become exceptionally good at shaping the thoughts and behaviors of others. Their findings reveal that manipulation is often far more subtle than most people expect. Instead of demanding control, manipulators create confusion. Instead of forcing decisions, they guide people toward choices that benefit them. Instead of attacking confidence directly, they slowly weaken it over time. The process is gradual, almost invisible, and that is what makes it so powerful. Many people spend years under the influence of manipulative individuals without fully realizing what is happening. They begin questioning their own judgment. They feel guilty for setting reasonable boundaries. They apologize for problems they did not create. They find themselves emotionally exhausted after certain conversations but struggle to explain why. Little by little, their confidence starts to fade. Their ability to trust themselves becomes weaker, and the person influencing them gains more control with every passing interaction. One of the most fascinating facts about manipulation is that the human brain is naturally vulnerable to it. Our desire for approval, connection, acceptance, and belonging can sometimes be used against us. Manipulative people understand these emotional needs, whether consciously or unconsciously. They know which buttons to push. They know how to create doubt. They know how to make their targets feel responsible for things that are not their fault. In many cases, the victim does not even realize they are being manipulated until significant emotional damage has already been done. The signs are often hidden in plain sight. A joke that feels more like an insult, a compliment that carries an unexpected sting, a conversation that somehow leaves you feeling guilty even when you did nothing wrong, a disagreement that always ends with you taking responsibility while the other person avoids accountability. These patterns may appear insignificant at first, but together they reveal a much larger picture, a picture that many people fail to see until it becomes impossible to ignore. That is why this topic matters. Understanding manipulation is not about becoming suspicious of everyone around you. It is about learning how to recognize unhealthy behavior before it gains power over your emotions and decisions. Awareness creates protection. The moment you understand the tactics, they become far less effective. The confusion begins to disappear. The hidden patterns become visible, and the influence that once felt impossible to explain starts making sense. In today's video, we are going to uncover the hidden signs of manipulative people that most individuals completely miss. You will learn how manipulators use guilt to control others, why some people constantly shift blame, how seemingly harmless jokes can become tools of emotional influence, and why certain individuals make you doubt your own memories and experiences. We will also explore one of the most overlooked warning signs that often appears long before manipulation becomes obvious. By the end of this video, you will be able to identify behaviors that many people mistake for kindness, concern, or friendship when they may actually be forms of emotional control. And make sure you stay until the very end, because the final sign is often the most dangerous of all. It is the tactic that connects many forms of manipulation together, yet very few people recognize it while it is happening. Once you understand this hidden pattern, you may start viewing certain relationships and interactions in a completely different way. If you enjoy psychology, human behavior, and the hidden forces that shape our daily lives, then you are in the right place. Welcome to the channel. Take a moment to subscribe and join us for more fascinating insights into the human mind. Now, let's uncover the hidden signs of manipulative people before they gain more power than they deserve. One of the earliest signs of a manipulative person often appears during moments that seem completely normal. It happens when you try to set a simple boundary. Maybe you need some time alone. Maybe you cannot help them with a favor. Maybe you disagree with a decision. In a healthy relationship, boundaries are respected even when they are inconvenient. Mature people understand that every person has limits, needs, and responsibilities. They may feel disappointed, but they accept the answer and move forward. Manipulative people react differently. Instead of respecting your boundary, they make you feel guilty for having one in the first place. At first, the reaction can seem subtle. They may become unusually quiet. Their mood suddenly changes. They act hurt. They act disappointed. They make it seem as if your reasonable decision has caused them pain. The goal is not always to start an argument. Sometimes the goal is much simpler. They want you to feel uncomfortable. They want saying no to feel harder than saying yes. Over time, a pattern begins to develop. Every time you protect your time, your energy, or your personal space, they respond as if you have done something wrong. Instead of respecting your decision, they make the conversation about their feelings. Suddenly, the focus is no longer on your boundary. The focus becomes their disappointment, their sadness, their frustration, their sacrifice. Many people fall into this trap because they naturally care about others. They do not want to hurt anyone. They do not want to appear selfish. Manipulative individuals understand this. They know that guilt can be a powerful tool. If they can make you feel guilty enough, they may not need to argue with you at all. You will begin lowering your own boundaries without being asked. The most dangerous part is that this process often happens gradually. One small compromise does not seem important. One extra favor does not seem harmful. One moment of giving in feels harmless. But when these moments happen repeatedly, they create a new pattern. You start prioritizing another person's emotions over your own needs. You begin questioning whether your boundaries are reasonable. You start asking yourself if you are being selfish when you are actually being responsible. A manipulative person may say things that sound innocent on the surface. They might remind you of everything they have done for you. They may compare your decision to what they would supposedly do in your position. They may imply that a truly caring person would make a different choice. The message is always similar. Your boundary becomes evidence that you do not care enough. Eventually, you notice something strange. The simple act of saying no starts creating anxiety. You begin preparing explanations before making decisions. You feel pressure to justify every choice. You worry about how the other person will react. Instead of freely making decisions based on your needs, you start managing their emotions. This is often where manipulation becomes more visible. The issue was never the boundary itself. The issue was control. Healthy people respect your ability to make choices. Manipulative people become uncomfortable when they cannot influence those choices. At first, it feels like they are simply disappointed. But as time passes, another pattern starts to emerge. The conversations themselves begin changing. Arguments that should be simple become confusing. Discussions that should lead to solutions somehow leave you feeling responsible. Situations that clearly involve another person's mistakes suddenly become centered around your behavior instead. This leads to another hidden sign of manipulation. Manipulative people rarely take responsibility for their actions. When a problem occurs, they instinctively search for a way to redirect attention. Accountability feels threatening because it forces them to confront their own behavior. Instead of accepting responsibility, they shift the spotlight onto someone else. Many people expect manipulation to look aggressive. In reality, it often looks like a conversation that slowly changes direction. The original issue begins to disappear. New accusations appear. Old mistakes are brought back into the discussion. Irrelevant details suddenly become important. The result is confusion. You enter the conversation believing one problem is being discussed. You leave wondering whether you are the problem. A simple disagreement can transform into a complicated maze of blame. Perhaps you point out something that bothered you. Instead of addressing the concern, they focus on your tone. If you question their behavior, they question your intentions. If you explain how their actions affected you, they explain why your reaction was the real issue. Notice how the focus keeps moving. The original problem never gets solved because the conversation never stays in one place long enough to solve it. Manipulative people are often skilled at creating emotional distractions. They know that confusion weakens certainty. When people become confused, they become easier to influence. Clear thinking becomes difficult when emotions are constantly being stirred up. This is why many victims of manipulation describe feeling exhausted after arguments. They spend hours trying to understand what happened. They replay conversations in their minds. They analyze every word. They wonder if they misunderstood something. Meanwhile, the manipulator often walks away without accepting any responsibility. One of the clearest signs appears when you find yourself apologizing, even though you were the person who raised a legitimate concern. The conversation begins with their actions and ends with your apology. Somehow the responsibility changes hands without you fully understanding how it happened. This repeated experience slowly damages confidence. Confidence depends on trusting your own judgment. When every disagreement leaves you questioning yourself, that trust begins to weaken. The human mind naturally seeks clarity. Manipulative conversations create the opposite effect. They create uncertainty, they create doubt, they create confusion. Over time, a person may become less willing to speak up because every concern seems to lead to another exhausting debate. This hesitation benefits the manipulator. The less you challenge them, the more influence they gain. And while confusion is powerful, there is another tactic that can be even more damaging. It involves information, personal information. The things you share when you trust someone, your fears, your insecurities, your failures, your regrets. Healthy relationships are built on trust. People share personal struggles because they believe they are speaking to someone who cares about them. Vulnerability creates connection, it creates understanding, it creates emotional closeness. Manipulative people often view vulnerability differently. For them, information can become leverage. At first, they seem deeply interested in understanding you. They ask questions, they listen carefully, they encourage you to open up. Their attention feels comforting, their concern feels genuine. And sometimes it is, but manipulative individuals collect information for a different reason. They want to know where your emotional weak points are. Everyone has insecurities. Everyone has painful memories. Everyone has moments they wish they could change. A manipulative person pays close attention to these details because they know they may become useful later. Months may pass before anything happens. Then one day during an argument, an old mistake suddenly reappears. A painful memory becomes part of the discussion. An insecurity you shared in confidence is used against you. The information you trusted them with becomes a weapon. This is often shocking because it feels like a betrayal. The very thing that created closeness is now being used to create pain. Old failures are repeated again and again. Past mistakes never seem to stay in the past. Embarrassing moments are brought up at convenient times. Weaknesses become targets. The goal is not understanding. The goal is influence. If a person can make you feel insecure enough, they become easier to control. Self-doubt creates dependence. Confidence creates independence. Manipulative people understand this relationship very well. That is why they often attack confidence indirectly rather than directly. Instead of saying you are incapable, they remind you of failures. Instead of saying you are weak, they focus on insecurities. Instead of openly lowering your self-esteem, they slowly chip away at it over time. These small attacks may seem insignificant when viewed individually. A single comment does not appear dangerous. One reminder of a mistake seems harmless. One reference to an insecurity may sound like a joke. But repeated over months or years, these moments create a powerful effect. The person begins seeing themselves through the lens of their weaknesses instead of their strengths. They become less certain, less confident, less willing to trust themselves. And once someone starts doubting their own value, controlling them becomes much easier. That is why manipulators pay such close attention to vulnerabilities. They are not merely learning who you are, they are learning where you are most likely to break. The final and perhaps most dangerous secret of manipulation is that it is rarely about winning a single argument or getting a single favor. The real goal is much bigger. It is about creating dependence. Manipulative people want to become the voice you trust more than your own. They want you to question your instincts, doubt your decisions, and seek their approval before making choices. Little by little, they weaken your confidence until you start believing that they know better than you do. The more uncertain you become, the more influence they gain. And over time, that influence can grow into control. This is why manipulation is often so difficult to recognize. It does not arrive all at once. It happens slowly, one guilty feeling at a time, one confusing conversation at a time, one small attack on your confidence at a time. The process is gradual, which makes it easy to overlook. By the time many people realize what is happening, the pattern has already been repeated hundreds of times. Manipulative people rarely reveal themselves immediately. They hide behind charm, behind kindness, behind concern, behind words that sound caring and intentions that seem genuine. But no matter how convincing they appear, their behavior eventually leaves clues. The guilt that follows every boundary, the confusion after every disagreement, the criticism disguised as advice, the self doubt that seems to grow stronger the longer you stay around them. The good news is that manipulation loses much of its power the moment you can see it clearly. Awareness changes everything. Once you recognize the tactics, they become harder to use against you. Once you trust your own judgment, confusion begins to fade. Once you understand your worth, guilt becomes far less effective. The very things manipulators rely on start slipping out of their control. And that is why knowledge is so powerful. The ability to recognize manipulation is not just a skill, it is a form of protection. It helps you make better decisions, build healthier relationships, and protect your confidence from people who would rather benefit from your doubt than your strength. If this video helped you see these hidden signs more clearly, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more videos on psychology, human behavior, and the hidden patterns that shape our lives. And if you found this information valuable, take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who may need to hear it. You never know whose eyes you might open with a single share. Thank you for watching, and remember this: the strongest defense against manipulation is not strength, power, or intelligence, it is awareness. Because the moment you learn to see the game, you stop being controlled by it.